I know what people are saying about me. That I'm a monster. That I ruined my daughter's engagement party with a slap scene by everyone from the cake table to the DJ booth. But none of those judgmental people whispering in corners, know what it's like to be a mother. A real mother. A mother who sacrificed everything to raise two daughters alone after her husband passed away and left behind nothing but debt and a half-paid mortgage. And now they think I should just sit there quietly and let my eldest daughter, Lila, treat her sister like trash? After everything I've done for them? No, I won't apologize. I won't. The engagement party was supposed to be a celebration. It was held at the Willow Creek Country Club, all white roses and champagne flutes, and string quartets in the background. Everyone was dressed to impress. Lila wore a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And standing next to her was her fiancé, Michael, smiling like he was the one who built her success. But I knew better. I built her. I took on extra shifts, skipped meals, and begged banks to give us loans so she could go to college. I cleaned office floors at 3 a.m. and sewed her dresses by hand for every school dance. And now, when it's time for her to give something back, not even to me, but to her sister, she says no? It was just $60,000. 60,000. A fund she wasn't even supposed to have until her wedding. A wedding that, let's be honest, wouldn't even exist if I hadn't pushed her to stop wasting time on that musician ex of hers and find someone like Michael. And her sister, sweet, fragile Sophie, needed that money. Not for shoes or handbags, no. Sophie got accepted into an accelerated grad program, and the deadline to pay tuition was coming up. We didn't have time. We didn't have options. I thought, surely Lila would understand. Surely she'd remember where she came from. So when I pulled her aside right before the toast and quietly asked her to transfer the fund to Sophie, I expected at least a conversation. Not that icy look. Not that arrogant, it's my money, and I'm not giving it to anyone tone. That's when I lost it. I slapped her. Yes, I slapped her, because sometimes words aren't enough. Because sometimes when your own daughter looks at you like a stranger, you need to remind her who raised her. The room fell silent. Gasps, clinking glasses, a dropped phone. Lila didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stared at me, cold and calm like I was beneath her. Then she stepped back, brushed off her cheek, and said something I'll never forget. You just made this easy for me. What does that even mean? Easy for what? She turned around, walked to the microphone, and I swear the air froze. Every person in that room turned toward her as she tapped the mic twice. Then she began to speak. Lila tapped the microphone once. Then again. The room stilled. Even the music cut off, like the speakers themselves were holding their breath. She didn't look at me. She didn't raise her voice. She just said, "Some people spend their whole lives pretending to be martyrs while making everyone else bleed for their sainthood." A few guests chuckled, confused, thinking it was part of a joke. But I knew. I knew it was about me. She continued, calm as ever. "You all know my mother, the woman who raised two daughters by herself, who always reminded us that everything she did was for us." She smiled, not a warm smile. The kind that slices. She forgot to mention the price tag, because in our home, love wasn't free. It was transactional. I felt my throat close up. My hand still tingled from the slap, but it was nothing compared to the sting behind her words. I wanted to stop her, but I couldn't move. For years, Lila went on, I worked 2 jobs while going to college, even when Mom told everyone she fully funded my education. I was on scholarships, loans. Michael helped. But Mom, she took credit for all of it. I could hear people shifting in their seats now. Whispers, eyes flicking toward me. Lila turned her gaze straight at me for the first time. And it chilled me. When I got the scholarship, you said it was because of the tutoring you paid for. When I got engaged, you said it was because you guided me toward someone decent. And now, you demand $60,000 for my wedding fund to give to my sister. Sophie shrank in her seat. Poor thing. I didn't mean to drag her into this. I just wanted her to have a chance. Something stable. But now she looked like she wanted to disappear. Lila's voice hardened. Let me be clear. I love Sophie, but I will not fund your manipulations anymore. I will not reward your control, dressed up as care. A few people gasped. Someone in the back muttered, damn. And I wanted the floor to open. She stepped down from the mic, walked past me without a glance, as if I didn't exist. I followed her outside. My heels clicked fast on the marble, heart thudding in my ears. I called her name, once, twice, before she finally turned. You embarrassed me, Lila. In front of everyone, she crossed her arms. You slapped me in front of everyone. I just told the truth. That wasn't the truth, I hissed. That was your version. Twisted and cruel. She just shook her head. No, Mom. You've spent so long spinning the story. You forgot what actually happened. I did everything for you girls, I said. Everything. She looked at me, and something in her eyes shattered me more than the slap ever could. No, Mom, she whispered. You did everything for control. You just called it love. Then she walked away, heels echoing like gunshots against a stone path. And I knew, right then, I had lost her. Not just for tonight, not just for the party, but maybe forever. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I kept playing it over and over, the way she looked at me, the way she spoke like I was just another chapter in her trauma story. And then the worst part. The silence after she walked away. I waited until morning to call her. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd cool down. Remembered that family fights happen, that mothers and daughters argue. But she didn't pick up. Not the first call. Not the fifth. By noon, my number was blocked. That night, I showed up at her apartment. I brought her favorite pastries from that little French bakery she loved as a kid. And flowers, too. I stood outside in the cold, knocking gently, hoping she'd see me and remember the good. She opened the door. But only halfway. Her expression was calm, unreadable. I just want to talk, I said softly. Please. She didn't invite me in. You said everything you wanted to say already, didn't you? With your hand. I flinched. Lila, I'm your mother. You can't just shut me out like this. She folded her arms. You're right. You are my mother. But that doesn't give you a lifetime pass to humiliate me. I tried to laugh it off. Oh, come on, it was just a slap. I was upset. People say worse things when they're angry. She didn't laugh. You didn't just slap me, Mom. You tried to make my engagement party about your control. You expected me to sacrifice my future again for Sophie. And when I didn't, you punished me. Publicly. I swallowed hard. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? She snapped. You've always decided what I should do, who I should be. And when I push back, you call me ungrateful. You are ungrateful. I burst out. After everything I gave up, everything I did for you. There it is, she said, voice quiet. The price tag again. I froze. I never asked you to give up your life, she continued. You chose that, but now you're bitter. And instead of healing, you weaponize it. My throat tightened. I didn't know what to say. The words just evaporated. She leaned against the door. I've spent years walking on eggshells around your moods, rearranging my life so you wouldn't feel left behind. But this time, I'm done. I'm choosing peace. I stepped forward, panicked. So what? This is it. You're cutting me off. I'm choosing distance, she said, until you can see me as a person, not just a product of your sacrifice. The door closed gently, not slammed, just closed. I stood there, heart pounding, face burning from the cold, or maybe from shame. I wasn't sure anymore. I walked back to my car, pastries still untouched in the paper bag. For a second, I thought about throwing them away. But instead, I placed them on the passenger seat and sat in silence. I still didn't think I was the villain. Not really. I was a mother. I made mistakes, sure. But doesn't every mother? Still. Something in her voice haunted me. Not the anger, but the calm, the finality. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just walked away. And somehow, that broke me more than anything else could have. The next weekend, I attended my cousin's birthday brunch, not because I cared for the quiche or the mimosas, but because I needed someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't crazy. They were all there. Aunt Marlene, Uncle Greg, even Lila's godmother, Carol, the one who used to call me the strongest woman she knew. I sat at the table, smiling tight, waiting for someone to bring it up. They didn't, so I did. Did you all hear what Lila did? I said, light-hearted, like it was gossip instead of heartbreak. Blocked me, after everything I've done for her. All because I asked her to help her sister. Can you believe that? The table went still. Greg looked down at his eggs. Marlene stirred her coffee, like it owed her answers. Carol glanced up, eyes sharp, unreadable. She said you slapped her, Carol said slowly. I blinked. Well, yes. But only because she pushed me so far. She humiliated me in front of all those people. She made me look like a fool. Marlene cleared her throat. Did you slap her in front of everyone? I waved it off. It wasn't that dramatic. I mean, yes, it happened. But people exaggerate. Carol didn't blink. She didn't. The silence after that was unbearable. I shifted in my seat, suddenly too warm despite the chill in the room. Look, I'm the one who raised her, I said, trying again. Her father died. I had nothing. I held that whole house together with my bare hands. I worked double shifts, sold jewelry, gave up my life so they could have theirs. And this is how she repays me. Greg finally spoke, voice calm. You did sacrifice a lot, Marie. No one's denying that. But love isn't a debt your kids have to repay. I stared at him. So I should just stand by while one daughter has everything and the other gets nothing? Carol leaned in. Or maybe. You should have asked without demanding. Listened instead of assuming. Let her be an adult making her own decisions. I swallowed. She called me controlling. You are, Marlene said softly. You always were. But we thought you'd grow out of it. My chest tightened. You're all taking her side? No one's picking sides, Carol said. We're just not ignoring the damage anymore. I stood up, heart pounding. I came here for support, not to be ambushed. Carol's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Maybe you came here for validation. Not the truth. I left. I didn't even wait for the check. Stormed out, heels clicking hard on the sidewalk, muttering curses under my breath. Ungrateful. All of them. But even as I sat in my car, door slammed shut, engine cold. The words replayed, not ignoring the damage anymore. Love isn't a debt. You always were controlling. I clenched the steering wheel, trying to shake it off. But the truth has a way of sticking. Even when you don't want to hear it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, for almost an hour, watching people laugh through the glass, toast over their empty plates, like nothing had happened. And for the first time, I wondered if I had pushed everyone too far. But no. I was the mother. I had given everything. If anyone should be begging for forgiveness, it was them, right? 3 weeks passed, and still no message, no call, no knock on the door. My apartment felt colder than usual, like silence had settled into the walls and refused to leave. Each morning I made coffee for 2, then poured half of it down the drain. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart leapt, only to crash moments later. I did something I never thought I would. I checked social media, Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. Lila was silent. Nothing. Just one photo from Sophie, posted a few days ago. It showed the two of them, arms wrapped around each other, standing on the balcony of Lila's apartment. Sunlight behind them, faces calm. The caption was short, but it stabbed me right in the chest. Healing, finally. I stared at the screen for minutes. My throat went dry. Healing? From me? I sat in my kitchen for hours that day, thinking, blaming, then trying not to blame, telling myself I was the mother, that mothers make sacrifices, that daughters forget, that this too would pass. And then, on Monday morning, I found an envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name, written in Lila's handwriting. I held it like it was made of glass. Inside was no letter, no apology, no invitation to talk things over. It was a bank statement. I frowned. It was from the wedding account I had opened for Lila years ago, the one I had carefully built, little by little, through extra shifts and skipped vacations. The one she wasn't even supposed to access until closer to the wedding. But at the bottom, in bold letters, it said, account closed. Funds transferred. New account holder, Lila Hammond. Independent access only. No authorized co-signers. My hands trembled. She had moved the money, all of it, into an account under her name alone. I had no more access, no more control, no more say. And tucked beneath the statement was a small handwritten note. Just one line. Love isn't a contract, Mom. It's not something I owe you. The paper slipped from my fingers, floated gently to the floor like a final verdict. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at it. That one line hit harder than any slap ever could. She hadn't just taken the money. She'd taken her voice back, her power, her boundaries, and she made it clear I was no longer part of that equation. I always thought I was the strong one, the backbone of the family, the one who kept everything from falling apart. But maybe I was the weight pulling it all down. Still, even now, a part of me refuses to believe I'm the villain. I'm the mother. I did what I had to do. I gave up everything. If she can't see that, then maybe she never will. Maybe this was her way of saying goodbye, not with words, but with silence. And silence is sometimes the loudest answer. It's strange, isn't it? How silence becomes the loudest sound in a mother's life. There was a time when my phone never stopped ringing. 2 daughters, always needing something. A ride. A loan. Advice. Permission. Now, days pass without a single vibration. Just the sound of the fridge humming and the occasional car outside. People always say time heals, that eventually the anger fades and families come back together. But what if the distance becomes comfortable? What if they never need you again? Some days I tell myself this is temporary, that Lila will come around, that she'll realize how harsh she was, that she'll look at her own child one day and finally understand the burden I carried, the choices I made, the pain I swallowed. But other days, I wonder if I crossed a line I can't uncross. You see, I didn't just slap her. I slapped everything she thought she'd finally escaped from. The control, the guilt, the endless bartering for affection. I didn't mean to. I just reacted, like I always do, like I was taught to do. You keep the family in line. You do what it takes. And now I sit here, surrounded by the trophies of motherhood, old report cards, baby shoes in a box, the wedding catalog I kept hidden in the drawer for years. All of it feels useless. Sophie still texts me. Short things. Updates. She's kind, but distant. She knows the ground we're walking is fragile, maybe even fake. I ask about Lila. She never replies to that part. I ran into Michael once at the grocery store. He saw me and nodded politely, then moved to another aisle. Not a word. Just distance. People don't tell you that the scariest thing isn't being hated. It's being irrelevant. I look at the empty chair across from mine and sometimes imagine her sitting there again, laughing at something ridiculous, asking me about centerpieces, rolling her eyes when I criticize her shoes. But then I remember her voice. Steady, sharp, unshakable. You did everything for control. You just called it love. Maybe that's true. Maybe I did confuse love with obedience, with sacrifice, with power. But no one ever taught me anything different. I was raised to believe that a good mother gives and gives and gives. And when she has nothing left, she takes control. Because control feels safer than chaos. Control means you're still needed. Now I'm not needed, and I don't know who I am without that. People call what Lila did setting boundaries. I call it betrayal, but maybe the truth is somewhere in between. And I'm too proud to admit it, so I stay quiet. I go on with my days. I cook meals for one. I fold laundry that doesn't pile up like it used to. I talk to pictures like they'll talk back. And sometimes I rehearse apologies I'll never say out loud. Because I still believe I was right. But deep down, there's a voice that whispers, maybe you lost her the moment you made love a transaction. And the worst part, I don't think I'll ever get the chance to undo it.
The world keeps turning, and with each turn comes a new story. When one door closes, another opens, leading us into a journey entirely different. Let us set aside the echoes of the tale just past and step together into a new realm where another destiny awaits to be told. And now I invite you to listen to the second story, a path of its own, unrelated to what came before, yet filled with mysteries and surprises meant only for those willing to journey onward with me.
I used to believe that home was supposed to be the safest place in the world. But for me, home often felt like a stage where I played the villain in someone else's script. Valerie, my stepmother, and Brooke, her 17-year-old daughter, seemed determined to paint me as the rebellious, ungrateful child. And over time, they succeeded. Valerie had a talent for saying the right things in the right tone, always looking so polished and composed that even her lies sounded like truths. Brooke, on the other hand, had this way of rolling her eyes at me, smirking just enough for it to sting, then switching back to sweet perfection whenever my dad was around. Together, they were like a well-rehearsed team, and I was their favorite target. It didn't start all at once. At first, it was small comments, Brooke sighing dramatically when I left my shoes by the door, Valerie mentioning how I seemed distracted at dinner, how I should try harder to fit in. But then, those small comments became conversations. And those conversations turned into entire narratives about me being irresponsible, unmotivated, even dangerous for their peaceful family life. What hurt most was watching my dad believe them. My father, Robert Thompson, wasn't a cruel man. He worked long shifts on the river barges, often gone for weeks at a time, and I knew he was tired. Maybe it was easier for him to believe Valerie than to look too closely at what was happening. Maybe he thought she was helping me grow up. Still, every time he nodded at her words or sighed in disappointment at me, it felt like another piece of my heart cracked. I had learned to stay quiet, to disappear into my room, to bury myself in homework or music, anything to avoid confrontation. But even in my own room, I couldn't escape the whispers that leaked through the walls. I could hear Valerie's soft, dramatic voice downstairs, talking about me as if I were a troubled stranger instead of her stepdaughter. And I could hear Brooke agreeing, telling little stories about how I was acting out or ignoring her advice. I wanted to scream sometimes, to tell them that I wasn't lazy, that I wasn't broken, that I was just sad, that I missed my old life, the one I had before my dad remarried, before Valerie and Brooke moved in with their perfect smiles and quiet manipulations. But I didn't scream. I didn't even whisper. Because deep down, I wasn't sure anyone would listen. The hardest part? Knowing that I loved my dad so much, and yet he was slipping further and further away from me. Every nod he gave Valerie, every frown he gave me, felt like another door closing. I had never felt so invisible in my own home. And even though I tried to tell myself it would get better, some small voice inside me already knew it wouldn't. Not like this. Before all of this, before Valerie and Brooke and the way my dad's eyes started looking past me, there was someone who saw me, Someone who loved me without conditions or calculations. My grandmother, Evelyn. My earliest memories weren't of city streets or crowded stores. They were of that little house by the lake in northern Minnesota where my grandmother lived. It had chipped white paint and a porch that creaked under our feet, and every morning the sunlight spilled across the water like gold. That was home. That was where I felt safe. Grandma Evelyn was the one who taught me music. She had an old guitar, its wood worn smooth from years of playing, and when she first placed it in my lap, it felt like magic. My hands were small, my fingers clumsy, but she just smiled and said, "Don't worry, Lily. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest." And so we played. I learned chords and little melodies, and soon I was writing my own songs, simple ones about birds, about rain, about whatever I could see out the window. She had this way of turning everything into something meaningful. When I was sad, she would put down her knitting, sit next to me, and listen. Really listen. She didn't rush me or talk over me. She would hold my hand and say, "It's okay to feel things deeply. That just means your heart works the way it should." We weren't rich, but life with her felt full. We baked bread on Sundays, fed the stray cats that hung around the porch, and watched thunderstorms roll in across the lake. She never made me feel small or wrong for dreaming too big. "You're meant for more than you know, Lily," she would tell me, tucking my hair behind my ear as if that little gesture could protect me from the whole world. My dad was often gone even back then, working the barges, doing what he could to provide. He loved me in his way, I think, but after my mom died giving birth to me, something in him shut down. He was present, but not really there. Grandma filled in the spaces he couldn't, and for a long time I didn't mind. I had her, and she was enough. But then she was gone. It happened fast, one winter morning. Her heart just stopped. I was 10. One day I was sitting at the kitchen table watching her knead bread, and the next I was standing in a cold cemetery, holding a bunch of white lilies that matched the snow. My safe place, my warmest person, was gone forever. That was when my dad decided it was time for me to move in with him, full-time, down in Minneapolis. He said it would be better, that we'd be a real family now. But deep down, I think it was because he couldn't face that empty lake house without her. I didn't argue. I packed my guitar, my notebooks full of half-written songs, and I left behind the only place that had ever felt like home. I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe moving in with Dad would be a new start. But I was wrong. The lake house felt like it had been carved out of my soul. After Grandma died, it was like someone had turned the volume down on the world. Everything was quieter, colder, emptier. My dad arrived the morning after the funeral, standing in the doorway like a stranger in his own childhood home. He looked at me, his eyes soft but distant, and said, "Pack what you need, Lily. We're moving downstate. It'll be better for both of us." Better. That was the word he used. But leaving that house didn't feel better. It felt like abandoning the only place where I had ever been truly seen. The thought of walking into a city school where no one knew me, of living with a man I barely recognized as my dad, it made my chest tighten. But I didn't fight him. I was too young, too numb from grief to protest. So I packed my guitar, my notebooks, and Grandma's photo album. We left that same afternoon, the lake vanishing behind us in the rearview mirror like a dream, fading after sunrise. The city was everything the lake wasn't. Busy, loud, crowded. People didn't make eye contact here. They rushed past you like you didn't exist. Our new apartment smelled of fresh paint and someone else's cooking from the floor below. It had white walls, spotless carpets, and no history. No warmth. At first, Dad tried. I could see he was nervous having me full-time now. He asked about my classes, cooked simple dinners, even bought me a new jacket for the winter. But there was always a distance, like he wasn't sure what to do with me, like I was a puzzle missing a few pieces. And when he talked about going back to work on the river, his eyes lit up in a way they never did when he talked to me. Then came Valerie. I met her for the first time at a coffee shop near the apartment. She was perfect. Glossy hair, elegant clothes, that warm smile people practice in mirrors. She said all the right things, asked about school, even complimented my guitar case. For a moment, I thought maybe this move wasn't going to be as bad as I feared. Maybe we really would be a family. I didn't know then how fast things could change, or how easily someone could take what little trust you had left and twist it into something unrecognizable. When Valerie moved into our lives, she brought a wave of changes I didn't fully understand at first. She wasn't just charming, she was strategic. Every smile felt perfectly timed, every gesture deliberate, like she was auditioning for the role of perfect stepmother. And for a while, I believed her. She and her daughter Brooke arrived with expensive luggage, designer handbags, and a confidence that filled every corner of our apartment. Valerie made it clear she was here to help my dad and support me through this so-called transition. Brooke, 17 and effortlessly stylish, gave me a once-over when we met, then smiled like she already knew everything about me. "Cute guitar," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "Maybe you can teach me a chord or two sometime." It sounded friendly. It even felt friendly at first. For the first couple of weeks, life seemed almost hopeful. Valerie took me shopping, saying I needed clothes that fit who you are becoming. She complimented my hair, suggested subtle makeup tips, and even invited me to sit with her while she worked on her laptop, asking about my school assignments. Brooke acted like a big sister, showing me how to braid my hair in fancy styles and giving me playlists of her favorite songs. I thought maybe this is what a real family feels like. One Saturday morning, Valerie came into my room, holding a cup of tea. "I know this hasn't been easy on you," she said softly, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Losing your grandmother, moving here, adjusting to school, but we're going to make it work, okay? We're all women here. We have to stick together." For a brief, fragile moment, I felt understood. I even smiled, but small cracks began to show, and I almost didn't notice them at first. Valerie's compliments turned into observations about how I needed to carry myself better, how I should show more gratitude to your father. He works so hard. Brooke's friendly tone began to shift too. Sometimes her jokes about my clothes or music stung just a little too much. Still, I clung to the hope that things would settle, that the awkwardness was just part of blending a family. After all, my dad seemed happy. I caught him laughing with Valerie late at night, his eyes softer than I'd seen in years. He deserved that, didn't he? Someone to share his life with, someone who seemed to understand him. I convinced myself to try harder. I cleaned up after dinner without being asked, helped Brooke with her school project, even skipped a trip to the music store so I could join Valerie for brunch. I thought if I just gave more of myself, if I proved I wanted this family, things would get easier. But I didn't know then that what I saw as bonding was actually just the setup, a carefully crafted opening act before everything shifted, and not in my favor. It happened quickly, faster than I expected. One moment Valerie was just visiting often, the next she and Brooke were hauling their suitcases into our apartment like it had always been theirs. My dad announced their marriage one evening over dinner, holding Valerie's hand with a look in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. "I wanted you to hear it from me first, Lily," he said, smiling nervously. "Valerie and we've decided to make it official." I forced a smile. "That's great, Dad." And I meant it, or at least I wanted to mean it. He deserved happiness, and if Valerie brought that to him, then who was I to stand in the way? The first few days after the wedding felt almost normal, but soon things shifted. Valerie's warmth cooled. The gentle advice turned into subtle criticisms. "Maybe you should keep your hair out of your face, Lily, it looks unkempt." Or, "You spend too much time with that guitar. Shouldn't you focus on more practical things?" Brooke followed her lead, rolling her eyes when I spoke, laughing at my clothes, whispering into her phone whenever I walked into a room. At first, I thought it was me, that I was doing something wrong. I doubled down on chores, thinking maybe I needed to show I could pull my weight. But the more I did, the more they asked of me. Dishes, laundry, vacuuming, the list grew until it felt like I was living in a house where my only role was maid. and when my dad came home from work. Valerie played the perfect wife, serving warm meals and giving me smiles that never reached her eyes. She would casually mention, "Lily seems a bit tired lately. Maybe school is overwhelming her." My dad would glance at me with that worried frown, then look back at Valerie and nod. It only got worse when she suggested I take a break from my music. "It's sweet that you have hobbies, but you need to focus on things that matter, Lily. College applications won't care about little songs." Little songs. I tried to protest. "Music is important to me." "Grandma," Valerie interrupted with a soft laugh. "Oh, honey, I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun, but let's be honest, it's just noise at this point. You're not going to be a rock star." I felt the words like a physical slap. For the first time, I didn't respond. I just put my guitar away, telling myself it was temporary, telling myself she was just looking out for me. But then came the day Brooke tossed one of my notebooks on the table. "You actually write lyrics? That's cute." She smirked. "No wonder you don't hang out with anyone. Too busy being dramatic." Something inside me cracked that day. I felt like I was losing not just my music, but also myself. Yet when I looked at my dad for support, he was already putting his arm around Valerie, thanking her for keeping the house running smoothly while he worked. I wanted to scream, but instead I stayed quiet. And in that silence, Valerie and Brooke began to reshape everything about my life and about me. It's strange how quickly life can shrink. One day you're planning to audition for the youth music program, dreaming about songwriting, and the next you're scrubbing dishes while your guitar gathers dust in the corner. That's what my life became. Valerie had a way of speaking like everything was for my own good. She told my dad I was distracted, that music was keeping me from focusing on my studies, and before I could even defend myself, I was unenrolled from my after-school music program. I tried to fight back at first. "Dad, music is important to me. Grandma wanted me to keep playing." But Valerie cut me off, her voice syrupy sweet. "Your grandmother would have wanted you to succeed in life, Lily. A good education, a proper career. Playing guitar is fine for a hobby, but it's not a future." My dad looked at me with tired eyes, like he wanted to agree with me, but didn't have the energy to argue. "Just give it a break for now, kiddo. We can revisit it later." Later. That word hung over me like a shadow because I knew it really meant never. Brooke took her cues from her mom. She made fun of me for still caring about that silly music stuff. Joked about me being a one-girl garage band. She had friends over almost every night, filling the apartment with laughter and whispered gossip while I hid in my room, pretending homework was enough to drown out their voices. It wasn't just about losing music. It was about losing space, losing air. I couldn't even find quiet anymore because Valerie made sure I had a chore list long enough to fill my evenings. Dishes, laundry, vacuuming, grocery runs. If I finished early, she'd find more. "It's called responsibility, Lily," she said one night when I complained about missing a study session for a math test. "You should thank me for teaching you life skills." But it didn't feel like life skills, it felt like punishment. Even school stopped feeling like a refuge. I used to stay late in the music room, sneaking in extra practice, but now I just went straight home because what was the point? Without lessons or encouragement, I felt my skills slipping. My fingers didn't move as fast over the strings anymore. My calluses softened. My songs stalled out halfway through. There were moments when I sat on my bed, staring at the guitar, telling myself to pick it up, but I couldn't. It was like someone had convinced me I didn't deserve it anymore. And through it all, Valerie kept smiling. She talked to my dad about how I was maturing and learning responsibility. And he believed her. Every nod he gave her felt like another door closing between us. I was alone, really alone. And the one thing that had ever made me feel whole, music, was slipping away, note by note, until it felt like there was nothing left of me but chores and silence. Valerie always said, "Trust is everything in a family." It was one of her favorite phrases the kind she used to smooth over tension after scolding me or giving me another chore list. But one night, as I passed the kitchen on my way to my room, I heard something that made that phrase ring hollow forever. Her voice was soft, low, and laughing in a way I had never heard when she spoke to my dad. "You don't have to worry, Jason, he has no idea." Jason. I stopped in my tracks, pressing my back against the wall so she wouldn't see me. There was a man's voice too, muffled but clear enough. "You sure you can keep it up? I don't want drama." Valerie chuckled again. That silky tone she never used on anyone but him. "Relax. Robert's never around long enough to notice, and Lily? She wouldn't dare say a word, even if she did suspect something." My chest tightened, my ears buzzed. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run in there and scream, to call my dad right then, but something inside me froze. What if no one believed me? What if this somehow got turned against me the way everything else always did? That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. Images of Grandma flashed in my head. How she always told me, "Lily, truth has a way of coming out, even when people try to bury it." But how? How could I make anyone see what I'd heard? The next morning, Valerie acted like nothing happened. She made pancakes, complimented my hair, even asked about a science quiz I had. The hypocrisy made me feel sick. I watched her laugh with my dad that evening and wanted to shout, "She's lying to you!" But when he smiled at her, looking so relieved to have someone he trusted, I stayed silent. That silence ate at me for days. Every time Jason showed up when my dad was working a late shift, I felt like I was standing on broken glass. Once, I even saw him leave our building at dawn, adjusting his shirt, glancing around like he was checking for witnesses. I knew I needed proof. Just telling my dad wouldn't be enough. Valerie was too good at twisting things, and I had already been painted as the moody, ungrateful teenager. So I scraped together my allowance and bought a small camera from an electronics store, the kind meant for pet monitoring. I hid it on the bookshelf in the living room, angled just right to catch the hallway and the front door. The first time I hit record and left for school, my hands trembled. It felt wrong, like I was betraying my own home. But every time I remembered Valerie's words, "He has no idea," my resolve hardened. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want to be right. I just wanted my dad to see the truth, because the truth was the only thing I had left. The camera didn't lie. The first few days it caught nothing but ordinary life. Valerie talking on the phone, Brooke walking in and out, me doing chores with my headphones on. But then there he was, Jason Miller, strolling into our apartment like he owned it, kissing Valerie before the door even closed. My stomach twisted as I watched the footage on my laptop that night. There was no way to misinterpret it. Her arms around him, his hands on her waist, the kind of kiss you don't give a family friend. I closed the laptop and just sat there shaking. This was it. Proof. When my dad came home from his trip 3 days later, I asked him to sit down. My voice was trembling, but I forced myself to speak. "Dad, there's something you need to see." He frowned, concerned. "Lily, what's going on?" I opened the laptop and pressed play. At first, he didn't move, just stared at the screen. Valerie and Jason were laughing, kissing, talking about our weekend plans when Robert's away. I saw the color drain from his face. He leaned back slowly, exhaling like he'd been punched. This can't be real." "It's real," I whispered. "She's been doing this for months." He closed the laptop, rubbing his forehead with both hands. I trusted her. I trusted her with you." I swallowed hard. "She told him you had no idea, and she said I wouldn't dare say anything." For a moment, there was only silence. Then he stood up. "Stay here." Valerie was in the kitchen making tea when he walked in. "Robert, you're back early. Who is Jason Miller?" His voice was low, steady, dangerous. I peeked from the doorway as her smile faltered. "Jason? He's just a client, you know that. Stop." He slammed the laptop onto the counter and hit play. The room filled with the sound of their voices. their laughter, their plans. Her face went pale. "Robert, I can explain. Explain how you've been lying to me in my own home." His voice cracked, the weight of betrayal cutting through every syllable. "How you've been using me and dragging my daughter through the circus while you sneak around." Brooke stepped in from the hallway, wide-eyed. "What's going on?" "Ask your mother," my dad said, his tone sharp enough to freeze her mid-step. "Pack your things. Both of you. Tonight." Valerie's expression hardened, the fake warmth gone. "You can't just kick us out. We're family." He looked at me then, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in months, and said, "No, family doesn't do this." Brooke turned to her mom, whispering, "Is it true?" Valerie didn't answer. She just grabbed Brooke's arm and stormed down the hall. Minutes later, the sound of drawers slamming and suitcases zipping echoed through the apartment. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, unsure if I should feel relief or grief. When they left, the door clicked shut with a finality that shook the walls. For the first time in months, the apartment was quiet. My dad sank onto the couch, elbows on his knees, hands over his face. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I should have listened to you." I sat beside him, hesitant at first, then put my hand on his. "It's over now, Dad." But inside, I wondered, was it really over? Or was this just the start of something completely new? The apartment felt unnaturally still after Valerie and Brooke left. No clicking heels on the hardwood floors, no loud phone calls echoing from the hallway, no fake sweet voice telling me what I should be doing better. Just silence. For the first few days, I didn't know what to do with it. I'd walk from my room to the kitchen and stop, expecting Valerie to be there with her perfect makeup and judgmental smile, or Brooke scrolling on her phone, laughing under her breath. But there was no one. Only my dad, sitting on the couch at night, staring at the dark screen of the TV. On the third evening, he turned to me. His voice was low, heavy with regret. "Lily, I need to say something. I should have been there for you. I should have seen what was happening. Instead, I believed her." The hurt in his eyes surprised me more than his words. I had imagined yelling at him, telling him how badly it hurt to be ignored, but now, I just felt tired. "I tried to tell you, Dad." "I know." His voice cracked, and I didn't listen. "That's on me." He took a deep breath and sat up straighter. "But I'm listening now. I want to do better. For you." Something in me loosened, just a little. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. From then on, he started to show up in ways he hadn't before. Small things at first, cooking dinner together, asking about my day, actually listening to the answers. He even helped me rest string my guitar one Saturday morning. "Thought you quit playing," he said, his tone half question, half regret. "I didn't quit," I whispered. "I just stopped believing it mattered." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "It matters. If it matters to you, it matters to me." We started taking walks by the lake near our building, something I hadn't done since moving from Grandma's house. It reminded me of her in a way that didn't hurt as much anymore. That's when I met Mrs. Henderson, an elderly neighbor who used to teach music at a local school. She overheard me humming one afternoon and stopped me in the hallway. "You have a lovely tone, dear," she said, her eyes lighting up. "Do you sing?" I shrugged. "I used to." "Well, you should again," she said firmly, as if it were the simplest solution in the world. "I used to direct the community choir. We need young voices. Come by sometime." I did. And for the first time in months, I sang in front of people who actually wanted to hear me. My hands trembled on the guitar strings at first, but as I played, something shifted, like the dust of the past few months was finally clearing off my soul. When I got home that night, Dad was waiting with a grin. "How'd it go?" I smiled, real and unforced. It felt good. Like me again. He nodded and handed me a small box. Inside was a brand new guitar strap, simple but beautiful. "For when you play again," he said softly. "For the first time since Grandma died, I believed things could be better. Not perfect, but better. And maybe that was enough to start healing. The community hall was small, lined with folding chairs and soft yellow lights. I sat on the edge of the stage, my guitar balanced on my lap, staring at the crowd as they settled in. My heart pounded, so hard I could feel it in my throat. In the front row, my dad sat with his hands clasped, a look in his eyes I hadn't seen since I was little. Pure, unguarded pride. For months, I had imagined what it would feel like to perform again, but now that the moment was here, I almost froze. Then I remembered something Grandma used to say. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. So I took a deep breath and began to play. The first chords were shaky, but my fingers remembered. And when I sang, it wasn't just lyrics, it was everything I had been holding in. The hurt of being ignored, the ache of losing my home, the betrayal that had almost broken me, and the hope of finding my way back. By the time I hit the final note, the room was silent, then filled with soft applause that built into something warm and steady. I looked at my dad, who stood with tears in his eyes, clapping harder than anyone else. After the performance, he wrapped me in a hug, something he hadn't done in years. "You were incredible, Lily," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you and so sorry for everything I missed." I hugged him back, my voice catching. "It's okay, Dad. We're here now." In the weeks that followed, things slowly took shape again. My dad found a new job that kept him closer to home. We cooked meals together, argued over movie choices, laughed about nothing at all. The apartment no longer felt like an empty shell. It felt like ours. Mrs. Henderson invited me to join the choir permanently, and I accepted. Each practice brought me a little more confidence, a little more joy. I even started writing new songs, ones that weren't about pain but about growing and surviving. One night, I sat on the balcony, guitar in hand, looking up at the stars. I thought of Grandma, how she taught me to love music, how she told me my heart was strong because it could feel so deeply. I smiled, strumming softly, knowing she would be proud of me too. Valerie and Brooke became just memories, distant echoes of a life I no longer lived. And I didn't hate them anymore. I didn't forgive them either, not completely, but I didn't carry their weight with me. They didn't define me. What defined me was right here. My voice, my guitar, my dad trying every day to be present, and a future that finally felt like it belonged to me. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. And as I whispered a quiet thank you to the night sky, I realized something. I wasn't invisible anymore.